Alrighty, welcome to Tuesday Conversation with Friends. And today I have the pleasure of reconnecting with old friend from years ago again. And this is one of the benefits of doing this is this wonderful connection, seeing life has how life has come full circle. So Tania Solomon, so can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Well, I know you from being an opera singer, and yeah, it's been a lot of years that I've been singing opera. We used to sing together in different groups, and when you lived in Los Angeles, so I'm here in Los Angeles still. And I have sort of morphed into a voice teacher, which for some is a natural progression, and others definitely not. And I love it. I love
I
it in
love
a
it
different
too.
way than performing. It's yeah, right. It scratches a different itch.
It does indeed.
So yeah, and I'm a mom. I got two teenage boys who are rapidly becoming men, and yeah, and that's kind of what I do. I also have had some life experience under my belt. It's funny for me. It's kind of I almost say it in the same breath that I'm a cancer survivor and a black belt in Taekwondo
I love
because
that. I love
yeah, it really it helped.
that. Yes, and I know you also at one point started your own opera company, and your life
That's true.
has gone through not a straight path, but definitely a scenic route. And
I'm an explorer for sure.
yes, right. Yes, and I know you're kind of moving into a new phase in your life too, working on because you are inspiration to a lot of people. So it's a natural progression to go into motivational speaking and being an inspiration for others. So I would love to learn a little bit more about what happened in the past almost 20 years. And some of the things that happened a little bit more recently as well. And it's just wonderful to catch up. So where should we
Yeah.
start?
Well, I mean, I think the elephant in the room is the breast cancer for sure. I mean, I think that was sort of how a lot of people were giving me that feedback of like, wow, I'm so inspired by your story. It was a funny thing because I was public about it with my friend group on Facebook, but I
Right.
wasn't public about it, right? And all of a sudden I would start running into people or people would send me Facebook messages or whatever, people I'd known forever, people I'd known for 20 years or more, and they would
Here.
say,
Right.
yeah, and they would say, "Oh, I'm such a fan. I'm really following your story." And I would think,
Mhm.
"Thanks."
Yeah, thank you for celebrating my illness.
It's like,
Right.
well, no, but I mean, it felt weird. It was a little like fanboy or fangirl, you know what I mean? And it was like,
Right.
but we know each other. Like I'm
Right.
just a person. So it was an interesting phenomenon that I hadn't really thought about. When the first time I had breast cancer was in 2010, and I had kept it very, very private. And there's a weird thing that happens when you keep a secret that it couples up with shame.
Yes, it
And
does.
breast cancer is nothing to be ashamed of. I didn't do anything to get it. I
Right.
was born with a set of genes, and my paternal grandmother had it at 40. I had it at 40. It was a definite, clear thing that I couldn't control. Like 2020. You know what I mean? Like there's no shame in all the stuff that we're going through because things happen. Things
Right.
just happen. So having had that experience and then kind of gradually kind of coming out about it, I thought, this time I'm doing it different. I am not
You sure
going to.
have.
Yeah, I went the opposite direction, and I'm so glad I did because you never know where support's going to come from.
Hmm.
And there were people that came at me obliquely that I knew, was
Right.
acquainted with and friendly with and whatever,
Mhm.
who stepped up and became like main supports for me. And
Wow.
those relationships have developed as a result of that amazing connection as
Beautiful.
I was going through this kind of adversity.
Mm.
So, I don't know. Everybody's different and everybody handles it in their own way, and there's no right or wrong way. You just get through it the best way that you can.
I think at different stages of life, we have a different set of coping mechanism that's appropriate for that age, for that time. And can
Sure.
we talk a little bit about maybe the first time around that whole concept of shame? And because, like Brene Brown is known for, daring greatly, dealing with the whole concept of shame, because I think it's something that's very prevalent in the society. And
Hmm.
because your experience is unique, because you have a true comparison of 10 years, 9 years prior, where you're dealing with a lot of shame. And
Hmm.
then there is a growth where you now are dealing with a similar situation, but you have grown out of that shame factor. And I think that
Hmm.
would be so wonderful for people to hear your journey in the between time as well.
Sure, sure.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I think, yeah, I do think there's a lot of shaming in society. At the time that I went through it the first time, my children were little, and I had been advised by a therapist, which I don't think was good advice, honestly. Great therapist, just off the mark on that one. But don't tell people because you'll get through it, and then people will want to keep reminding you of it and open up the wound and that kind of a thing. And I just think it was wrongheaded advice.
Okay.
And I didn't tell my children that I had cancer because they were very little,
Right.
and so there was a fear that they would act out or that it would traumatize them because I was going through something that was life threatening. And so they knew that I had to have surgery and that I had to have treatments and various things. I just had a lumpectomy and radiation the first time around, so I kind of kept it under wraps. I was singing at a temple in West Palm at the time. I went in for High Holy Days like the first week I had radiation, and I managed to get through High Holy Days without severe reactions. And I was hiding it from everybody in the choir and the cantor and everybody. And later on, like the next year when I went back to sing, they were doing a big breast cancer like service
Wow.
where they wanted me to sing in it. If you can imagine, they needed sopranos. I know. Go figure. And so I was their big soprano star because I was like the only one in the section. And so they had this wonderful experience where they bathed the whole temple. They had just redone it. It was gorgeous. They had all this fiber optic lighting, and they bathed the whole temple in pink light. And they did this. It was just this support service for everybody. And I'm not Jewish, and it still was like
Hey, but
amazing.
still, right?
And so I brought my kids and they handed out tambourines, and it was this wonderful, joyous experience. And that was kind of when I came out to my kids. And there were other women in the choir, and they were like, "Why didn't you tell us? We are all about Susan G. Komen and blah, blah, blah." And I was like, well, I didn't want to seem unprofessional. I didn't want to seem like I didn't want to lose the job, like, "Oh, you can't do this." And like, it's like, yes, I can. I didn't want to have that conversation. So my kids, like when they think about, like for the years when they thought about breast cancer, they thought about like all this pink candy and cookies. This
Oh,
amazing musical experience. It was like this
it's like
positive
Christmas in
thing.
pink, right?
Right? They were so excited. And they were like the only kids there, so they loaded up my children with so much sugar. They like needed, a Sherpa to like carry these candies home. So it was this very strange kind of experience, but really positive. And that may have been part of what changed my idea about like, why am I not open about this? Well, I never thought I would get it again.
Right, of course.
It was stage one. They got it all with the lumpectomy. I went through 6 weeks of radiation. They were like, Psh, you're golden. You're not dying of breast cancer. Don't worry about it. Obviously went through my screenings and all the rest of it. I mean, once you're a cancer patient, you always are. But and then it came back. And it was terrifying. I mean, it was really like, I mean, the thing about having cancer, breast cancer, or any kind of cancer that can kill you is that you really do face your mortality. And it's right in that span of time when you're waiting for the results to see how bad it is when your mind just goes, berserk. And the second time around was definitely worse, because I thought, oh my God, that's it. It's come back to get me. I mean, this is it. It was the same breast. It was a recurrence. And it was a more complicated situation this time, and I needed a lot more treatment. I was wham bam thank you ma'am in 2010,
Right.
and in 2019 it was like, okay, so we're going to start you on chemo, then you're going to have a full mastectomy and reconstruction. And the reconstruction I chose because I had already had radiation. I didn't do implants. I had basically, they took my tummy and they made a breast out of it, which is like a medical miracle.
Oh,
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
maybe I should deal with this one.
It was pretty amazing. Yeah, so my tummy is crazy flat, but
Ooh.
I know, right? Silver
Right.
linings. And then they discovered that there was, in addition to the tumor, there was a whole other population of cancer that they hadn't treated. So
Ooh.
then I had to go back in. That was a real shock. That was, because you're kind of like running for the finish line. And you're like, I'm
Right.
gonna make it. It's gonna be great. Almost done. And then they're like, nope, you're going in for more chemo and radiation.
I remember seeing your post when you needed to go back because it looked like you were celebrating. It was done and you survived and life
Yeah.
resumes. And then
Rearview
you had to
mirror.
go back. Right, but
Yeah.
I remember then you had to go back for a series of treatments.
Yes.
And
That was hard. It was really
yeah,
hard. My hair was just coming back, and so I was going bald again. And I said to my younger son is the one who's real artsy, and I said, you know what, I want a henna crown. I want you to do a henna crown for me. So because the first time I just went bald. I did not want to wear wigs. I thought I did, and they were uncomfortable, and I was just like, screw it. This is what I'm going through. This just is, and again, that shame factor. It was just like, why would I hide under a wig? Again, it's not a judgment on anybody who chooses to,
no,
you sometimes you just want to feel normal. Like you just
you
desperately
want to
want
be
to
able to
not feel
get
like a
out of
cancer kid.
bed, go on with your day.
Right. And for
Right.
me, that was bald.
Yeah.
It just was. I don't know why. I mean, as I say, like you think you know what you would do in a situation, and then it hits, and then you're like, nope, doing something different. So so I went bald, and then I got my hair back, and then I went bald again, and both times I shaved a little mohawk for a moment, a little mohawk for a day, because why not? I'm not going to do it any other time.
Right, you might as well do it now, It is what it is.
So.
You might
Yeah,
as
so
well
to
have
try and
fun.
enjoy it. Yeah, try. I
Right.
mean, I know it sounds a little weird, but try and
No.
enjoy it along the way.
Right. Just
Um,
finding joy,
yeah,
regardless, because what other choice you have? You do have other choices, but do you really
sure.
want them? Right?
No, I mean that was it. Is it's like I just it's like the old adage, we can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way. And for me, the hard way would have been to mope around and be really blue and
Right.
really I literally never asked why me. And again, this is not a judgment on anybody who sits there and says, why me?
Right.
It's a natural thing to say. It surprised me that I didn't. The question didn't make any sense to me. It was literally like, why not me?
And it doesn't have anything that helps you to move forward in that element. I
Exactly.
understand the tendency to think about it and asking it, but the question in itself doesn't help you to move forward because there is no answer that could be satisfactory. Right?
Exactly. I tend to work from a place of like, what will serve you in this situation?
Mhm.
It's like, are you entitled to your feelings? Yes, 1,000%. Of course, you're entitled to your feelings. And I had feelings. I had blue days, and it's not like I didn't cry and journal and complain or whatever. I try not to do it a lot because it really does kind of drag you down.
Yeah.
And I would catch myself and I would go, that's just going to put me in a worse mood. I don't need to like go through that. So it's
Well,
not
yeah.
it's a Goldilocks zone between being in denial and then just like giving into the thing. And it's like,
Right.
okay, what's going to propel me forward? I mean, the second
Right.
rounds of chemo, I was much sicker, much more nauseous. I had to take a lot more drugs to combat the nausea. But
Mhm.
I literally was like, you know what? I can be here in my pajamas for, the next 2 months, or I can just, be out in the world doing things. So we went to Shakespeare in the Park, and we went to the Getty, and we went, we did stuff, went on hikes
Thank
and
God it was 2019, not 2020.
right.
Whoa.
Ooh.
It's interesting because what I'm hearing is there's a difference between processing and rumination.
Yes. That's
And,
a perfect succinct way to put it.
right, because you processed you weren't not you took the time to process, but once the feelings have been processed and it begins to pass through you,
Hmm.
you're not in denial. You experience them fully. You let it
Exactly.
pass through you and keep flowing, and you move
Sometimes I think
through
about
it.
it.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes I think about it like a mud puddle, right? Like you're walking along and you see this like big, gushy, wet, gross mud puddle, right? And it makes sense that you see it, you observe it, maybe you even stepped in it and that's how you noticed it. And
Right.
you look at your buddy's shoe and you go, dang it. And then you step aside and you walk around and you go, wow, that's a really big mud puddle,
Hmm.
right? But you don't jump into the mud puddle and mire around in it like a little piggy.
No, that's not quite your life. So, now you're a pig. Now you're a
Yeah.
frog. Don't get in the puddle and stay there. You're not a pig, not in this lifetime. Right?
Exactly, exactly. And and it's like the things that seem like common sense when you take the emotion out of it, suddenly, like, we all kind of go into this turmoil, this sort of panic response. I feel like it's almost an animal thing, right? Like, like you get into this fear mode, and then you can't really kind of think straight. And it's like you have to find a way to sort of be detached and observe your emotions almost as though you're a little bit outside them, not get sucked into the vortex.
Now, you feel free to say no, but I was wondering if you would be willing to share a specific moment when you felt what you just described and how you got out of it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I mean, I'm one of these people who I often have to remind myself to go back
Hmm.
because I'm always going
Always moving
forward.
forward, right?
Yeah, and going back is important too because then you can see how far you've come. So, like, I always tell my students this, like, it's really, really important. Um, I think, in the beginning when I was waiting to start treatment and I was sorting out my doctors and all that sort of thing, um, I was really, really terrified. I was really, like on the brink of tears a lot. I was really scared when I had to tell people, particularly like, so there's this black belt extravaganza, and I had just gotten my black belt 6 months prior, and I was going to perform in it. And because of the biopsy, I couldn't perform in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to tell people at my dojang that I couldn't do it. And I was really like, so emotional that I couldn't even really kind of get the words out without crying.
Hmm.
And I think that I just kind of said, like, no, I just had to kind of be strict with myself and just sort of say, like, you don't know anything yet. Just wait and see, just wait and see. And I just breathe. And honestly, the black belt lessons that I learned, I always distilled my black belt lessons into three points. One is do what's in front of you. And that's where this really applied. Is like, just don't get overwhelmed by everything you have to do. Do the thing that is the task that is immediately in front of you. The second one is you're stronger than you think. The number of times that through my training in martial arts, I did something that I hadn't done before. I mean, I would look at them demonstrating and I'd be like, ah, you've got to be kidding me. Like, there's no way I can do that. And I would do it and I would finish and I would think, my God, I did that. You know, so, do what's in front of you. You're stronger than you think, and you're not alone.
Right.
And I think that's a really important one. You have community into you. And so people started immediately just showering me with support and love. And, we have this weird idea as Americans that we have to be independent, and it's
Right.
like,
Hmm.
there's a difference between independent and interdependent. You can
Right.
be
Yes.
you can be an individual and you can stand on your own 2 feet and you can be strong and still lean a little,
Hmm.
and sometimes we all need that,
I
you
think
know.
so. And it's interesting because the word survivor usually is used and linked to people who have survived an illness like this.
Hmm.
But for some reason, I don't relate that word to you because I don't feel like you have survived. I feel like you've lived. It's much more of a alive process. It's
Hmm.
not just I'm trying to survive, but you actually chose to live more. And by
That's a
that,
fair point.
yeah, by that living more,
Hmm.
somehow everything else just kind of work itself out in the process of just doing what's in front of you and really live. And the versus kind of thinking, oh, I'm trying to survive this, and what do I need to do? Only it's more than that for you. That's what it sounds like to me. And
Yeah, it's an
yeah.
interesting observation. I mean, I think that kind of comes from a mentality that I have, like, a lot of people chafe at the idea that everything happens for a reason. I don't know. I don't know if I would agree 100% with that. I don't know.
I think we have to
Um,
be dead first to find out. So I'm
right?
not there yet.
We're never gonna know, right? But I do think that I look at life as a series of lessons. I
Right.
I try to cherry pick something out of the experience that will serve me. You
Right.
know, it's really, it's all about, it's kind of like the adage about, I mean, it's tough these days. A lot of couples are fighting and that sort of thing, and it's like, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? Right? It's kind of the same. It's a parallel mentality of, like, would you rather be miserable or would you rather learn something? And so we make choices. Life is full of choices, even in the face of something we freaking did not choose.
You
you
know,
know? And
we like to think we get to choose everything that happens in our life. Somehow we're responsible for it. But I really don't think that's the entire truth. I think, there's a lot we can do about it. But things happen in life and they just happen. And are you going to live through it or are you going to mope through it?
right, right. And I mean, I like to think of it as like a card game, right? So you can't control the cards that are dealt to you.
Hmm.
Sometimes you get a great hand. Sometimes, as we say in my family, you get a hand like a foot, and you get these cards, but then you choose how to play them.
Right.
You can bluff, you could fold, you can, play out the hand, you can turn in cards and I'm thinking of 5 card draw. But you can choose how to play that hand. And that's where these skills come in. That's where coping comes in. That's where processing comes in. That's where resilience, growth, all of those things come in. It's like I was just writing a thing that I'm going to post on a blog about the idea that a tree is either growing or dying, right? And I think we're like that. I really do. I think that we have to keep growing in some way. It's everyone's choice as to what they do, but becoming conscious of those choices is really important. It's something I do with my students, right? They sing something that like they've heard Christina Aguilera sing that way, and so they sing it that way because it's in their ear because they heard it that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they sing a note a certain way because it's the only way they can get it out.
Right.
Right. So it's like that's what technique gives you. This is about technique, honestly. I mean, it's a technique for living.
Right.
Right. And I always say, put all the tools in your toolbox and then you choose which one you use. Make a paint box. You choose the colors. Make a decision as a sentient being about how you want to be. How you want to be in a song, how you want to be in a relationship, how you want to be in life, whatever. How you want to be in your body. We get these choices.
Right. And I want to talk about one more thing before we have to say goodbye. That is something we chatted about this a little bit before we started about a person's process, whether it's outside in or inside out. And both are valid and they often one leads to another. And this time around, you have chosen to share with people via Facebook. And for instance, somebody like me, we met years ago, and Facebook's been wonderful in the sense that we can we can keep track of each other.
Exactly.
And but you wouldn't have picked up the phone and say, "Hey Shirley, you know what? I haven't seen you for 20 years. I hope you're doing well. I have breast cancer." Right?
Not likely.
Right. But
who would want that call anyway?
You'd be surprised. A person could be so codependent that like, call me when you're sick because I need to be needed. Right?
I suppose too. Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Yeah. But that choice to share, because it's a deliberate choice, and it was something that was specific, and it did something for you in your process of healing, in your process of getting through the living part of this process. Would you share with us?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought us back to that point because I think it is a really salient point. I've heard this term external processor. And I think that processing my cancer the first time internally, part of the reason it didn't sit well is because it doesn't mesh with who I am. Right, and my essential being, and so I think that's really important that it be a very individual thing for everyone, not just cancer, but anything that you're going through. That you like the Temple of Delphi, like know thyself, right, and to thine own self be true. I think that we all have to go through this process also of knowing ourselves, knowing what's going to be good, knowing what's not going to be good. I call it being the architect of your own happiness. It's like know that wall should go, but that's load bearing.
Really,
right?
The architect of your own happiness.
Yeah, I've always told that to my children. It's like, because you go towards the thing that feeds you and away from the thing that drains you. And so in this case, I think that, putting it out there and having it come back to me, at these different, as I call them, oblique angles, right? Where, you're putting it out this way, then it comes back from another person because they're kind of processing it and giving it back to you. You kind of hear it in a different way. It's an interesting sort of sounding board with a lot of different angles.
Exactly.
And so sometimes it gives you a new perspective on the thing you literally just said.
Wow.
So it's kind of as I say, not for everybody. I'm an extrovert. I'm an external processor. I'm an intense person with a lot of emotion, as we were talking about before. We're opera singers.
I don't know why you'll be that way. Operatic sopranos. I don't know why you'll be intense and emotional. It didn't seem like
Right.
it. It's interesting because I remember you from years ago. It was in a master's class. In a master class, you sang "Una voce poco fa" in the soprano
Ah,
key, and
yes.
you wore a beautiful red dress, and it was like kind of like the cushions behind you, the maroon kind of red,
Uh-huh.
and it's
Uh-huh.
just beautiful. You were just stunning, and I think it was with Bill Vendice, and I remember he
Oh,
said,
I remember this math class. Yeah, this master
"Yeah,"
class. Yeah.
and he asked you, "Why would you sing this aria in the soprano key?" And I think most of people would have kind of go, why are you asking? Maybe I shouldn't say anything. You say, well, because I got a high note, so I think I would just sing it so I can get to sing the high notes. And I loved that because, it's like, okay,
That's
well,
so
stand
funny.
up for what I really believe. This is why I'm doing it. Do you have a problem with it? And he did.
Yes, well.
But it didn't matter at the end, because 20 years later, if you want to sing Una voce poca in the tenor key,
Right? Sing it and speak it all. Yeah,
so,
no, that's interesting. It's so funny. I love comparing memories with people. I got together with my cousin, and we had totally different experiences of the same thing. And it
right?
is that thing. It's that perspective, right?
Hmm.
Where we all have a different perspective, and when we share them, it can be very enriching.
And that personality, I think, is showed at a very early time because fast forwarding, it's
Mhm.
kind of a similar. It's the same woman on the inside.
Mm.
That you know what? I think I sounded really good on this. I'm good. See? Everybody tells me they love my high notes, and that's the end of that. And I'm going to live my truth. And I'll see you in the next master.
Right? That's funny. That's
And
funny.
yeah,
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. I also think, we get a bad rap sometimes as opera singers as being drama queens. And to me, there's a very fine
we're
distinction.
paid to be that.
Well, I always say keep the drama on the stage.
Yes.
And that's another thing too, is when you go through something, when you go through a real life drama, I mean, because breast cancer is very dramatic, it's very operatic in its proportions. It's important not to, again, sort of get caught up in that vortex, that drama
Right.
vortex,
Right.
right? Of it being
Right.
like, oh, it's so dramatic. Oh, it's so dramatic. Because then it's almost stepping aside of what the point is,
It
you
almost
know?
becomes drama's purpose is to be bigger than life. Can we
Mhm.
really afford to let something like this to become bigger than life? Can we bear it?
Yeah, it's already bigger than life. Yeah, yeah. I
Right.
mean, but life is like that, right? Sometimes it's stranger than fiction. Sometimes you're just like, wow, how did that all happen in one year?
Exactly, exactly. Well, Tanya, it's always so fun to catch up with people, and I feel like we can talk forever. And I'm sure we can do two, three more episodes and not be done. And but maybe we can plan on that. And
Yeah.
because I think people seem to be enjoying those conversations because it's personal. It's something that's unexpected sometimes for people, and it's personal. And I think the fact that most of the people I'm catching up in a different context
Hmm.
and new stories, new perspectives come out, and I'm enjoying it so much. I'm enjoying you so much,
Well,
and
thank you so much for inviting me. It really was
of course,
fun. It's great to
yes,
see you, and
likewise.
you haven't changed a bit.
It's called filter. And I will always remember that beautiful soprano with a full head of red hair and in her red dress. And
It's back.
yay! It's worth celebrating, and we have to visit the next time when I come back to LA to visit. And
Yes, please.
it will be so fun to see each other. And
Yeah.
so for now, reluctantly, we must say goodbye, and we'll do it again the next time. I'm just so glad you joined me today. So Tania
Me too.
Solomon. Yes. So, well, until next time.
Thank you, Shirley. Bye.
Bye.